Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, today we're going to unpack the really tragic story of Pulkovo Flight 612, August 22, 2006. A routine flight, Anapa to St. Petersburg, but it ended in disaster. 170 lives lost, and tragically 45 children among them. We've looked at the reports, the data, trying to understand how this happened.
Yeah, this is it's a really chilling deep dive for you, the learner. It shows how you get this convergence of extreme weather, some critical human decisions, and just the hard limits of aerodynamics. Our goal here is really to pull out those key moments, those aha points that show how this sequence of events led to such a catastrophic outcome.
Okay, let's start with the plane itself. A 2154M. Now, it was technically fine, but the design, it had that T-tail. That wasn't just cosmetic, was it? How did that factor in?
That's absolutely crucial. The T-tail, with a horizontal stabilizer sits high up, great for cruising, but it has this inherent vulnerability to something called a deep stall. If the main wing stalls, if it exceeds its critical angle, the turbulent air coming off it can basically blanket that high tail. Your elevators stop working effectively. It's like losing pitch control. And add to this, the crew, they knew about bad weather. The forecast warned of severe storms. They even had a pilot trainee on board.
So they knew about the weather, and they actually managed to avoid one storm successfully. But then ATC steps in with a routine instruction. And this reroute, it sounds simple, but it put them on a completely different path, didn't it?
It really did. They handled the first bit of weather okay, but this instruction, it sent them straight into the absolute worst part of a massive thunderstorm complex. And here's a really vital point, a key aha moment for us. The Kharkiv ATC, they didn't provide updated severe weather info. It's like they were flying blind into the most dangerous part. That lack of information was critical.
Right. So they're facing this immense storm, they don't have the full picture, and they make this decision. Climb over it. They requested flight level 390, that's what, 11,900 meters, trying to conquer the storm essentially, but this pushed them into the coffin corner. Explain what that actually means for the plane.
Yeah, the coffin corner, it sounds dramatic, and it is. At that altitude, especially for a heavy aircraft like the Tu-154M, the stall speed, the slowest you can fly, gets really close to the maximum safe speed. You have this tiny window of safe airspeed. Now, add severe turbulence, which they definitely encountered. That tiny margin almost disappears. It makes the aircraft incredibly difficult to handle.
And that's when things really started to unravel. They got stall warnings, the stick shaker, the UASSP system, but they thought it was just more turbulence. How does that happen?
Well, under intense stress, and possibly dealing with disorientation from the turbulence, it's a known human factors issue. They misinterpreted the physical warning signs. So instead of lowering the nose to recover from the stall, they kept trying to climb. They made repeated nose-up inputs. They also turned on the anti-icing systems, which actually reduces engine thrust slightly, and they disengaged the autopilot. It's just a cascade of actions driving them deeper into the stall. It points to issues in training for these specific high-altitude situations and maybe poor crew resource management, poor communication in the cockpit.
So those nose-up inputs trying to climb actually pushed the wing past its limit, this aerodynamic pickup, into a full stall. And that's where the T-tail came back to bite them.
Precisely. Once that wing fully stalled, the disturbed airflow completely blanked the T-tail, just as we discussed. The elevators became ineffective. They couldn't lower the nose. The plane was trapped in a deep stall, which then developed into a flat spin. It fell, uncontrolled, for over 2 minutes. That design feature, combined with the situation and the inputs, created an unrecoverable trap.
Wow. The official investigation, the MAK report, they pointed to crew errors in handling the plane manually as the direct cause, but they also flagged other things, right? What were the contributing factors?
Absolutely. Beyond the immediate handling errors, the MAK really highlighted inadequate pilot training, specifically for manual flying at high altitudes and recognizing and recovering from stalls under those conditions. CRM crew resource management was also cited as lacking. And crucially, circling back to what you said earlier, that failure by ATC to provide the severe weather warning was seen as a major contributing factor. It shows it's rarely just one thing, it's systemic failures too.
This disaster, it sounds like, really forced a change in thinking. The emphasis shifted strongly to avoiding severe weather entirely, and it pushed forward upset prevention and recovery training, UPRT, globally. What's the core lesson from UPRT that relates here?
UPRT is all about giving pilots the skills to first recognize and avoid getting into situations like stalls or unusual attitudes, especially at high altitude. But if they do find themselves there, it trains the correct, often counterintuitive, recovery techniques. Pulkovo 612 showed how badly things can go wrong if those warnings are missed or the wrong action is taken. The big takeaway is respecting the limits, the aircraft's limits, the weather's limits. UPRT reinforces that.
So thinking about this whole chain of events, what does this deep dive really mean for you, the listener, maybe outside of aviation?
Well, Pulkovo 612 is just such a stark example of how seemingly separate factors, weather, technology, human decisions, missing information, training gaps can align to create a catastrophe. It really underscores the fragility of complex systems.
And here's maybe something for you to think about. The crew tried to push through and over a massive natural obstacle operating at the very edge of their aircraft's capabilities in bad conditions. What does that tension between trying to conquer something powerful versus respecting its limits and finding a safer path teach us about making decisions in any situation where the stakes are high and the environment is uncertain?